If you did not get those notes and follow those instructions, please go ahead and do that now. I'm gonna get our lesson pulled up here. Garrett, please quiet. What's up, Caitlin?
Well, wait, I'm just like, it's tomorrow.
Yes, it is. No, it's not. 6 reading log is due Monday. So we gave you an extra weekend here. When we push everything back, you're gonna have a little bit extra time. So real quick review, week 6 reading log is due on Monday. We don't have school Friday. Your project will be due the next week. You must, have to get your book finished. You're off on Friday. You've got Saturday, Sunday. I gave you that extra weekend. Please, please, please be diligent, be responsible. Make sure you've got your book read before, so you don't lose points and so that you've got a full week to prepare your presentation. Okay, bronze bow test will be next Friday. We're going to have a quiz on Wednesday after our time of review of our chapters 21 to 24. Okay, that'll be our last quiz before we take our test. Okay. As we've been talking about narrative writing, we have talked about characters. Okay, who can tell me our chart we made? Give me 2 of the comparisons that we've been talking about. What's one set of this or this? Amaris.
Character traits and emotions.
Okay, character traits versus emotion. Good. Peyton.
Static and dynamic.
Static and dynamic. Excellent. Tolan. Round and flat. Emma.
Direct and indirect.
Direct and indirect characterization. And I want to go back to that one for a second. What's a direct characterization?
When it's telling
Caleb?
you exactly how it is. Not
The
like
author,
dancing around it.
exactly. So the author is saying, this person was kind. This person was cruel. This person did this, our characters in our story. So if that's a direct characterization, what's an indirect characterization? Ivy?
Something that's implied by the author.
Okay, implied by the author. So the way I like to think of it, so direct, the author tells us something. Indirect, our author is going to show us something. That implication, the expression of his thoughts, his actions, the situations he's in, the choices that our character would make is going to tell us something about who he is. Okay. As we go into today's lesson, we're going to talk about types of conflict. So on your handout, I know you recognize one side as our plot mountain. We've worked on that through Evangeline. I feel like we did this a little bit in Sherlock and a little bit in maybe even Christmas Carol, talking about the things that make up a plot. Before we do a review of our plot mountain, I do want to take a moment to look through our types of conflict. So on the back side of that sheet, you've got your types of conflict. And I want you to jot down as we work through here, we're going to talk about the 4 different main types of conflict that we see in literature and in turn see in movies, even some songs. You're going to see that you're going to identify a conflict. Garrett, I'm going to slide this in before I perish. Thank you.
Okay.
So you're going to see that, and then we're going to do a little game to see if we can identify some of these areas of conflict. Amaris?
What's your name or number?
Oh, name's fine. Yeah. These are just your notes. This is not anything to turn in. These are just for your notes. Okay. So as we look at our types of conflict, our first type of conflict is man versus man. Are we talking about only a male here?
No.
No. We're talking about a person versus a person. When a character has a problem with another character, okay? What stories can you think that we've read this year so far that have a man versus man conflict? Or character versus character? Not
The bronze bow, whenever Rosh didn't want to go save Joel.
so even in Bronze Bow, where we're at right now, we have this conflict between Rosh and Daniel not wanting to go save Joel. Good. Oliver? Sherlock versus Moriarty, and really Sherlock versus all the bad guys he went after, right? Sure, but especially in the final problem, Sherlock versus Moriarty. Garrett?
Bruce versus the people.
Okay. Did he have a conflict with the people? Okay, hang on to that. We're gonna come back to that in a second. Caleb?
Like, Sherlock would be man versus, or not Sherlock, in the Christmas Carol, it'd be him versus himself.
Okay, yep, we're gonna come back to that. Amaris?
Joe's father.
Okay. The conflict with Daniel and Joel's father, when Hezron and he went head to head that first meeting, did it go well?
No.
No. What happened?
Daniel.
He got kicked out. Yeah. He's like, you need to leave. Don't ever come back. Leave my son alone. I don't want you dragging him down, was essentially the gist of it. So when we look at literature, when we look at movies, we see this. And when you look at your own writing, you've got to identify a conflict in your story. But you're like, but Ms. Metcalf, it's just a happy story about my vacation. But there has to be some type of conflict. Otherwise, I mean, if you went and saw, let's see. Somebody raise your hand and tell me your favorite movie that's appropriate to share at school. Caitlin. Megamind. Tolan. Minions. Okay. I am much more familiar with Minions than the Megamind story, but I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, Pookie. Okay. So in Minions, if it had said the Minions helped Gru and it was a good day, would that be a very interesting movie to watch? No, it would not, because there has to be a conflict. Our inner being of who God made us to be, we want to cheer for the good guy. We want to see good overcome evil. We want, because that is what our heart wants, hopefully, right? We don't generally want to cheer for the bad guy to win. If we do, that might be a different conversation we can have, right? But man versus man as we're struggling through this. Okay, our next one, and we're going to come back to Bronze Bow a little bit, okay? Man versus himself. A character struggles with their own feelings, thoughts, or decisions. Okay, Garrett, you shared at first, you thought Christmas Carol might be man versus man. What do you think now? I think it is man's versus himself here, because Scrooge has got all this bitterness, all this anger, all this frustration that he is internally dealing with. And it manifests itself when the ghosts come and help him walk through these stages of his life, looking at his past, looking at his present, and then looking to what's going to come. Okay. Where else have we seen man versus himself?
Oh.
Reagan?
I was thinking kind of like Daniel.
Yeah. So within a story, we can have man versus himself. We can identify several conflicts in a story. When we look at the theme as a whole, though, we want to take a look and decide, what do we think the overarching, remember how we kind of talked about nouns, like a noun umbrella? Noun is the big word. Under noun, you've got subject, direct object, indirect, object of preposition. Okay. We want to think of that overarching theme for the whole book. You might have conflicts with people, conflicts with yourself, and then as we go through our others, with nature and with society. But over the main idea of what the author wants us to learn is where we're going to identify that core conflict for our story. Garrett? Leah, for sure. She is battling this PTSD, trauma. She has got so much that she is dealing. So yes, she is scared of the world, but it's all inside. She is having to deal with all of this. Okay. All right. Our next one is man versus society. A character struggles against rules, laws, or cultural expectations. Where have we seen a little bit of this?
Daniel.
Okay. Again, Daniel, we're seeing a lot of conflict here in the Bronze Bow, aren't we? So what's he fighting against?
Romans.
Against the Romans. And he's also having, I think, a conflict with his faith too, right? He's thinking about the laws. He's thinking about what Jesus has said versus what the law says. He's thinking about his vow that he made. Good, Caleb. Okay. Do we have any other man versus society that we've read about this year in a different story? Ivy?
I mean, kind of a Christmas Carol, because
Okay.
it's like Scrooge and then everybody else just kind of like hates him.
Okay, everybody hates Scrooge. And what else about our Christmas Carol and Oliver Twist that we look at that played a big factor in Dickens' writing? Reagan?
Evangelist.
Okay. Yes, the British, exactly. The British came and kicked the Acadians out in Evangeline. You're right. So that was a situation where things were happening in culture that impacted our characters. Let's slide back to also to Christmas Carol. What do we know about Dickens' writing that may have had an impact on what he wrote? What was the time? What was our setting? Time and place? Amaris? Victorian era. What do we remember about the Victorian era? It was what? Poverty. Miles, what were you going to say? It was in London, in England. Poverty, working conditions, child labor laws, right? There was a lot of really wealthy people, but there was a lot of people who were ridiculously poor and could not survive and make it on their own, right? That technological revolution with the steam engine, all of those things impacted our characters. Would Oliver have had an issue if he had not been in the orphanage or homeless? No. Yes, you did read Oliver Twist for summer reading. We started our year with that. I'm glad it made such an impact on you all. But we started that, and then when if you remember, when we went through Sherlock and Christmas Carol, we remembered some of the stuff that happened in Oliver Twist was now finding itself in our Christmas Carol too, because of that time and culture that affected our characters. So when you're writing and you're looking against, okay, does our character have a problem with an authority? Is there a problem with culture? What problem are our characters having to overcome? What's going to affect their story? Okay. And man versus nature. Yes.
The Helen Stoner against the snake. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, good. I didn't even think about that one, Garrett. But yeah, so when we look at a character faces challenges from weather, animals, natural disasters, we remember back in the Speckled Band, because that speckled band was a what?
Snake.
It was a snake. And so there was a cheetah and a baboon and a snake. And she was terrified because her sister had just died and she needed to figure out what was going on. Amaris?
Would it be like Rosh and like the sheep sort of?
Okay, I can see that a little bit for sure. So I see where you're getting that. I think that's going to be more of like society and culture. Because Rosh, even with his subculture up on the mountain, he's like, I can do what I want to do. I'm going to steal from people, rob the rich to feed the poor kind of thing. And we're the poor, so it's going to help us. But I can see definitely. So we're thinking of like stories like, trying to think if I can think of it. Oh, I don't want to think of too many because it's part of my game we're going to play. Okay. But we think about like, even in stories in the Bible, right? The flood. That's, even though it was part of God's plan, it was still nature. It was still an obstacle. It was still a problem that needed a solution. God provided the solution to Noah and his sons, but it was still part of that plan. Think about the disciples when they were out on the boat. What happened? The storm. Yeah. And Jesus is like, y'all, what in the world? You woke me up. Like, it's fine. Peace be still. And so the disciples saw a conflict. They saw a problem. But Jesus is like, peace be still. It's fine. Right? So when God is able to intervene in those situations, and we look back in the accounts from Scripture, the accounts from the Bible, we can see the Bible's full of conflicts, right? We look in, I think it's Romans. I'm terrible with references, but in Romans, Paul says, I don't do what I know I should do. I do the things that I know I'm not supposed to do. Wretched man I am. So he's got this conflict in himself. David and Saul. That was a conflict. Man versus man, right? Saul was trying to kill him. Okay, now, so think about these types. We're going to use these types. We're going to click through here, and I'm going to show you an image from a movie, a character, a scene, and I want you to stand, pop up if you know the answer, and share which conflict it is, okay? All right. Oliver. It's not
That
clear.
shall be man versus man.
Man versus man, they've got good versus
Wow.
It is Harry Potter versus Voldemort. All right.
Oh, wait,
Hey.